I looked up some stats the other day because I was curious, it's like, okay, I know that all the differences between men and women are socially constructed, but nonetheless, I went and looked up the biological comparison of strength. And the typical woman has 30% of the upper body strength of the typical man and about 55% of the lower body strength. Now that's a big difference, man. That makes the average man 3 times as strong in the upper body. Jesus, that gives you an advantage that's just, it's criminal. So
it is, but the question is, how much do you lose from the conversion? How much do you lose from estrogen? You lose some. But if a woman, look, if you have an athlete who's a woman who's 32 years old, and it turns out that she's been taking steroids her entire adult life. So she's been taking steroids for 12 years every day, and then decides to stop taking them right before the Olympics. Wouldn't everybody agree that she has a massive advantage? Wouldn't everybody agree that most likely her tendon strength, her muscle strength, her bone structure, all of that has been completely altered by taking performance-enhancing drugs? We would all agree to that. Well, guess what? That's what you're doing if you're a man for 30 years, and then you decide to transition and become a woman for 2, even if you're taking estrogen, even if you go through the
thing I don't understand is, apart from the obvious unfairness of that, what I struggle with understanding is the triumphalism of the victors. It's like they enter these contests and then they win, and then they celebrate their victory as if it's a genuine victory, despite the fact that they wiped out these women who've been working mostly within the rules for maybe not decades, but certainly many, many years in succession. And they just blow them away, especially in strength contests. And then they actually treat that like they won, and then they also claim it as a moral victory. And for me, that's just that. The only thing I see in that is a narcissism that's so deep that it's almost unfathomable. It's like, how can you take pride in that sort of victory unless you don't see who it is that you're defeating? I don't get it.
Well, it shows how pathological this whole thing really is when you're dealing with the idea that you can turn a person into someone of the opposite gender, not just recognize them as being a woman and treat them as a woman and allow them to use whatever name they would like. I'm all for that. But it's that you are going to say, no, this is a woman and she should be able to compete with women, including in combat sports, rugby. There's a male to female trans athlete that plays rugby in Australia that's 240 pounds and just smashing women. And I don't think there's any real standards that are universal in terms of what do you have to go through in terms of your conversion therapy. And what about size differences when you're dealing with high impact sports?
No, because that's a political minefield. The radical end of it is, well, you're the gender that you say you are, and the medical conversion is irrelevant. And I don't know how that translates into the sports world, but my sense is that if the same thing happens in the sports world that's happened in the political world, that it will be basically indistinguishable from whim. It's like, well, now I'm a woman.
I had a guy on my podcast recently, and this came up, and it was a big argument. And his stance was he is all for inclusiveness, and he wants he would like to move towards a world where trans athletes can compete and they're included, and they can compete as women. And I was trying to explain the benefits of being a male, the physical benefits of being a male and competing against women. And, he just didn't want to hear it. It was just in denial of it. It was going against these preconceived notions that he had, and the ideology. There's a part of progressive ideology that is, you're supposed to look at a trans woman as every bit a woman.
Yeah, well, that's 100%. Because you're supposed to accept the doctrine that all differences between men and women are socially constructed, which is, of course, a doctrine that's, I think
Nonsense.
it's delusional.
Yeah, it's nonsense.
It's delusional for some even deeper reason that's even harder to fathom. And
I don't know what it is. It is hard to fathom. I don't understand the root of it. I really don't. I even when I talk to people who subscribe to these notions, I don't understand the logic. I don't understand where's the breakdown in their perception of the world.